Hello and welcome to today, where all that exists is now. And I hope you're having an amazing experience here on Earth. As for it has gotten a whole lot more interesting, and there's no coincidence that the last video I dropped happened just before even more chaos ensued here on planet Earth and in America. Chaos and tragedy, and it's completely unfortunate. And it's also a perfect time to dive into the meaning of legal and law. What does legal mean? What does law mean? Why do we obey laws? What is the difference between legal and illegal in the legal definition, in the public definition, and in the personal definition? There's layers to every word, and at this point in time, I think it's important we discuss legal and law. So we're going to slide on over to Google here and look up the basic definition. So we're going to start here with legal. And this is Google's definition. And there's 4 billion results, and this is the only few that we're getting. So obviously there's 4 billion different perspectives on legal. Definitions from the Oxford Languages. Adjective, legal, of based on or concerned with the law. Quote, the American legal system. Appointed or required by the law, a legal requirement. Law, recognized by common or statutory law as distinct from equity, retaining to theological legalism. Permitted by law, the claim that it had been illegal or that all been legal. Right? That's Google's definition of legal. Here's definition of law. Law, the system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as a regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. They were taken to court for breaking the law. Number 2, a rule defining correct procedure or behavior in a sport. Right? 2 different definitions, same word, 2 different connotations. Just an example. Then we have Blackstone. Right? How does Blackstone define law? Blackstone said that law, in its most general and comprehensive sense, is that rule of action which is prescribed by some superior and which the inferior is bound to obey. Black's law definition of legal, conforming to the law, according to law, required or permitted by law, not forbidden or discountenanced by law, good and effectual in law, proper or sufficient to be recognized by the law, cognizable in the courts, competent or adequate to fulfill the requirements of the law. And then we have maritime law. And legal definition of maritime law is a law that relates to commerce and navigation on the high seas and other navigable waters, and is administered by the admiralty courts. So why have I brought up each of these separate definitions of the word law and legal, right? The Oxford Dictionary, the Black's Law Dictionary, the Maritime Law Dictionary, these are all agreed upon books and constructs of how we conduct ourselves within these terms, right? And so when we go to school, we're taught about law, we're taught about legal in a basic common sense. In a, if you do this and you break the law, you're going to go to jail, right? So be a good citizen, obey the laws, and you won't go to jail, is basically the common consensus of what is imposed upon the American mind frame, right? And then we fast forward to 2022 in this current time frame, and what we can thus then realize, right, or what we can see is the majority of people follow the law. They follow the rules. They want to obey. They want to be good people. They want to be good citizens, right? And then there's this small, tiny group of people who create the laws, who enforce the laws. However, they don't obey any of those laws that they create. So we looked at the basic definition of law, right? And we looked at the basic definition of legal. Legal means adhering to the law, right? And the law is written by a select group of people who are influenced by an even smaller group of people. And these rules and regulations and things that they create, they don't have to adhere to. So we have this complete imbalance and misunderstanding of law and legal. So legal, in the layman's definition, the best way I could break it down and that I understand it, and others should understand it too, is legal means three things. It means taxed, regulated, and controlled. That's all that legal means. We live in, or we used to live in, a constitutional republic that was coined as a democracy. And in our public institutions, right, we're taught the basics of a law and how a law is formed and how a law gets passed. And then we sort of drop it from there. We don't think about it. We're not taught about the banks. We're not taught about the banking system. We're not taught about the judicial system. We're given a surface view of the select different branches, right? But we're not given anything definitive. And the reason we're not given anything definitive is when you have knowledge, you can defend yourself, right? Perfect example is fire. When you learn how to start a fire, you don't have to worry about getting cold. You have the knowledge, and then you can come up with the resources to create the fire and keep you warm, safe, dry. Just a basic metaphor, right? Legal meaning taxed, regulated, and controlled is what it is, but the general public has been influenced to thinking that legal means balanced, moral, and fair. And those things are not its meaning or intent to begin with. So to give a perfect example, governments think they have the legal authority to attack nations that aren't going with their agenda. And they do it in such a way that the general public is influenced into believing it's done for freedom and democracy. And the soldiers, before they go and do what they have to do because they signed up to do it, right? They go through boot camp and they go through basic training, and they get their programming of what they have to do to achieve the mission and, fulfill their portion and do their job, all that, right? Then afterwards, once they're done and they age a little bit, their morals kick in, their wisdom kicks in, the regret kicks in, and then the system that they helped uphold and were a part of no longer supports them, kicks them to the curb. Fact, not fiction. Just ask a vet. And so the American propaganda machine known as mainstream media has been given legal authority through an executive order to utilize propaganda to influence the perspective of the American consumer. Not only here, but also abroad. The United States of America has the world's largest, most elaborate, comprehensive, in-depth, controlling propaganda machines known in human history to date. And if we don't broaden our understanding of basic words and terminology, of things that when we hear them, we obey them, but we don't question them, and yet the people who enforce the obedience don't obey the rules that they create. The Federal Reserve is a great example of unchecked power. Right? Sounds very very official. Federal Reserve, very official sounding. When you dig into it, turns out there's nothing federal about it. There's nothing government about it. It's a privately owned bank, which was given permission to print off our money and then loan it to us at an interest rate and basically get rich off of the backs of the human civilization for as long as they can until it no longer has its value. And then they're going to erase the debt and bring in a new form of currency. They did this before in the 1930s, before the Federal Reserve was enacted. They made possession of gold illegal, which means you could no longer hold it because the authorities didn't want you to possess it. They wanted you to turn it in and then be given cash bonds for the gold, and that gold was to be deposited into Fort Knox, and then we've never been able to get an audit. I'm sort of getting off track, but it still stays in line with law and legal. Now, there were laws and regulations that the Federal Reserve had to adhere to, but then they gave money to lobby groups, and these lobby groups then lobbied senators and congressmen and put forth bills, right, and voted them into law. And when a bill gets voted into a law, that's how it gains its funding, right? That's how it gets its money. And that's aside from the current budget, annual budget, quarterly budget, whatever budget they set, whatever new law they create, they pull money out of thin air into the economy to then create whatever it is they want to create. So, perfect example is the current administration's ill attempt at putting forth a disinformation board, using our tax dollars to tell us what's truth and what's fiction. And legally they could do it because of an executive order that was signed by Barack Obama allowing them to propagandize American citizens. And it's thick, and it's real, and it's here. And the only reason they've been legally allowed to do it is because of our misunderstanding of law and our misunderstanding of accountability through the just us system. Not the justice system, it's the just us system. And there's a lot of metaphorical meaning and word meaning behind the courts, the bench, the galley, the jury, the jurors. The whole process ties into maritime law. That aside, I'm not diving into each of these separate laws, but there's multiple definitions for each of these things, and we fall into each of these categories, and we're considered lost at sea, all right, until we recognize our sovereignty and take back ourselves as nation land. Again, do some independent time and research during that mental health break you should be taking right now. Back to legal. Tax, regulated, controlled. Perfect example. Colorado, first state in the union to legalize cannabis. Yay! Everybody's cheering. You can get legal weed. Woo! Billions of dollars since 2010. So it's 12 years. Billions of dollars have been siphoned off of the taxpayer because it's legal. That's all they did, is they found a loophole in their own laws that they've created that we obey, they don't obey, and they've laundered billions of dollars off of the incompetent, pot-loving, tax-paying consumer. The majority of people don't know that the tax rate to move the weed from the back room to the front room, they pay 18%. And then the customer pays an additional 32%. That's 50%. They are a 50% profit share in the cannabis business through tax revenue. Using Federal Reserve printed currency, which is federally illegal, And also, that's money laundering. They laundered billions of dollars off the back of the American consumer because we voted to make it legal. And as soon as we voted to make it legal, we gave all of our power over to this third party who then designs and creates the rules and regulations of which the taxpayer, the consumer, and the operator adhere to. They don't have to follow. They can just come milk the cow however they want, whenever they want. And there's no accountability to them, only to the people who are buying, selling, cultivating. Those are the only people who are held accountable. And so they promise to do certain things with the money in ad campaigns, right? Which are, we're going to give it to the schools and the students and the teachers. And then it never happened. They laundered billions of dollars. And we can't legally hold them accountable because they're the authority. And we obey them by buying it and paying the taxes and not questioning it. That's just one simple example over a facet, anything in the industry, any industry, you name it, cosmetics, food, anything that has to do with consumer. If it's legal to buy and sell, all it means is it's taxed, regulated, and controlled. That's all that it means. And as soon as we can understand what legal really means to us, the end consumer who are obeying the laws, it makes it a whole lot more difficult for them to influence us through, save the children, take the guns away, pot. There's so much misinformational chaos coming from the candidates who want you to give them their power so that they can just do whatever they're told anyways, through the people above them who are very wealthy, very elite, very selective, very poisonous, very selfish, and very dangerous. Right? It's 2022. And I'm going to pull out one group, Catholic Church. And I'm going to pick out one thing about the Catholic Church. They were founded to end poverty. They were there to help the poor, the sick, and the dying. And trillions of dollars over 2,000 years have been given to this organization, and they haven't resolved one issue that they said they were going to resolve. And when you step back and you look at that, and you look at how much energy and currency and time, how many people were murdered in the name of love, give us your money so we could take care of the poor people. You need to follow our Christ or we're going to murder you. Right? All the way to where they're at today, that they're their own separate independent city-state. They are their own legal governmental authority. They have their own military. They have their own police force. They are the bank. And none of us can go do anything to the Vatican or any of the people who are participants of the Vatican in any of its locations all across the globe. When something happens with one of their priests, they just move them. No legal accountability. None. So when you look at the people who are supposed to be promoting love and unity and ending issues on the world are only perpetuating the vile things that they're not supposed to with no legal accountability, we look like the fools because we're allowing this to happen day in, day out, year out, decade after century. This is the one point in time in our human history where we can all take a look at the board and take a common consensus that shit's fucked up. And it's fucked up because the very people at the top who are meeting right now in Switzerland or wherever the fuck they are in Europe where it's safe, it's a war-free zone, you can't do anything, they don't get involved in shit. They're meeting right now to come up with the next year's headlines, news, how they're going to operate the medical system, what's going to happen with insurance, what's going to happen with technology, what's going to happen with media. A select group of individuals are doing that right now, and us bringing that forth to the public's attention because it's not on their television station and it's not in their general awareness, we come off looking like we don't know what's going on. And we do, because these are the people who are creating the laws that we obey. These are the people that say, you have to be a good citizen. You got to find a career. You got to find a way to fit in as a cog in this machine that produces for the machine. But at the end of the day, the machine will never produce that same balance that you give it. And when you go, and what we're here to do now is we're here to look at all of these agreed upon constructs that we've created over the last 2,000 years. Look at them from the Bible and the basic 10 commandments. Here's 10 rules. And we won't even talk about where that comes from or how that got there. That's its own thing. But let's take a look at these 10 basic rules. Can you motherfuckers follow these? No. And even you don't even hold your governments accountable to these same rules, but we're going to put on the back of the money in God we trust. We're going to murder in the name of freedom. We're going to murder in the name of Ruskies. Right? We're going to just murder because we can murder, and then we're going to tell you something that it's not. We're going to bomb the shit out of people while you go to work and pay for those fucking bombs. And don't think twice about it. Well, no, you do. You think, oh, fuck, April 15th coming up. Got to get my tax return. I need to buy some shit I don't fucking need. While they utilize that blind, willful, compliant obedience to destroy the world we're living in and then say it's our fault. Which, technically, it is our fault because we're believing the bullshit we're being fed. Oh, oil's bad for the environment. My carbon footprint. How do I save Earth? Through giving away more of my money and driving a Subaru. And I went from driving a Subaru, now I'm going to drive a fucking Tesla. And I'm not even going to think about lithium or batteries or the damage that does or where it comes from or how it gets here or who mines it or how any of this became what it is. I'm just going to do what the TV tells me because it makes me feel good. It makes you feel good because your mind and heart have been disconnected and it's lying to you, and your mind doesn't like to be fooled, and your heart knows what's right or wrong, and the mind's lying to the heart. Oh, it's cool. It's okay. I feel good. I'm doing what I'm supposed to. I'm contributing to society. All of the contributions that we've made, that our parents made, our grandparents, our ancestors have made to this date have really screwed everything up in our central society. It's all backwards and upside down because, our parents told us, put your head down, go to work, obey the rules, follow the laws, don't break the laws. You could go to jail. You don't want to go to jail. You could go to prison, right? And it turns out, fun fact, we love fun facts. 1/3 of the United States adult population, 18 and over, and a select few of juveniles, have got a felony on their record. That's right. Somehow, some way, they broke a law that ended them up with a felony. And because they weren't educated in the school system about the judicial system, about laws, about so many things they weren't educated about, people then go to court because they're afraid of going to prison. They don't want to lose out on their life. They cut a deal instead of taking it to trial. Less than 3% of all court cases go to trial, especially jury trials for criminal convictions. If more people stood up and said, no, I did not break that law. No, you're wrong. No, this is unacceptable. I want to take this to trial. We would literally collapse the system. It wouldn't be able to stand. They couldn't process it. And when enough people wake up to the realization that law and legal only means three things: taxed, regulated, and controlled, and us as the citizen are the obedient ones to the authority by obeying said rules, laws, and regulations, while they adhere to none. Zero. There's none. There's such a misbalance in the justice system. It's not the justice system, it's the just us system. And they put the blindfold on her because they don't want her seeing what the fuck's happening. Because if she could see and judge what's really taking place, 95% of the judges would be kicked out of the court system. 99% of the DAs would be kicked out of the court system. 99% of the public defenders would be kicked out of the court system. And the court system would be shut down because it's not fair, it's not balanced, it's not just, it's not equal. And it wasn't built that way. It wasn't designed that way. And just yesterday, there's a Supreme Court judge that ruled that if you were found guilty of a conviction or you pled guilty to a conviction, but you have new evidence that you weren't guilty, that you could no longer submit that evidence. How more upside down and backwards could we be? Now, back to my 1/3 of the adult U.S. population has felonies. That's right. They have felonies. Most of them are for possessions of narcotics or drugs or alcohol abuse. Most of these things, like alcohol, is legal, taxed, regulated, and controlled. Methamphetamine is illegal, not taxed, not regulated, not controlled. Marijuana in certain states is legal, taxed, regulated, controlled. Marijuana in other locations is illegal because it's not taxed, not regulated, and controlled. They just did some huge pot bust in Arizona or New Mexico yesterday. Oh, illegal pot grow, get shut down. What's illegal about it? Let's think about it. Let's just pause and think. What's illegal about their grow? Only 3 things. They weren't paying taxes on it, which they paid taxes probably on all the things they bought to operate their grow. So the taxes were paid. It's not being regulated. That means the Marijuana Enforcement Division can't come in and check your pot plants even though they don't know shit about pot plants because they're just a bunch of fucking rule followers, right? These are the tattletales from elementary school. And it's not being controlled, taxed, regulated, controlled. They can't tell you when and where and how much to sell your cannabis for. You can grow it all and give it all away. They don't want that. They don't want medicine, free medicine in the hands of people. But a crack pipe? Oh, they got you. Dirty needle? You got a dirty needle? We'll give you a clean one. Here's the legal way to do it because we're taxing the public to pay for these needles, right? We, the state and the city of Denver, control the needles. And by us controlling it, we think we can regulate the drug use in Colorado. It hasn't worked. It's a giant flop. Hinkenlooper, you suck. Polis, you suck. All of you guys suck. You suck. And it's nothing personal. You put morals and conscience aside so you could have profit and comfort and power and control now. And that's illegal. And the way you've done it is illegal. However, we, the majority, aren't aware of that. Again, billions of dollars legally taxed off of the consumer that you laundered, right? Because it's federally illegal for you to receive payment on cannabis. But you just break that law because it's good for the economy. And then here's a mind-bending one for you, legal and law, the GDP, right? The gross domestic products number. We hit, wow, GDP is through the roof. The GDP actually counts in all of the drugs and narcotics that are seized and stolen, trafficked, even humans. Even the humans that are trafficked, they take that economic amount and they add it to the GDP. So through us obeying and complying most laws and thinking we're good citizens because we're following the rules, these people are taking everything that's on the plate, all of it, and they're putting it towards our success. So even if you're selling drugs and you go to prison and then you pay fines, so on and so forth, even though your buddy put you in, it turns out your buddy used to be a military guy, used to work for the CIA, and oh shit, it's all trickles back up to the top, right? And there's a lot of that does, and they put it in the movies. You just got to be able to catch it, recognize the pattern. Our understanding of legal is we need to obey the laws because it keeps everybody safe. Right? And for the majority of us, we're all obeying the laws. And then again, the people who are creating the legal laws that we obey are orchestrating the chaos behind the scenes. if they weren't the ones running the drugs, running the guns, running the propaganda, running the military, running all of this chaos behind the scenes while we get up and go to work and pay our taxes because we're good citizens, we're obedient and compliant, we follow the law, we wouldn't have to deal with this crazy bullshit. Well, how do we change it, John? Well, we just got to elect somebody. No, we got to stop. We got to hold the people that have lied, manipulated, and tricked us into living these lives of obedience and compliance, because human means to be humane, compassionate, caring, not compliant or obedient. Not that at all. Compassionate and caring. You want to come down on our communities? Not going to stand it. You want to come down on our children? Not going to comply. Not going to be obedient. That doesn't make me a bad human. That makes me a good human, because our children are the future. And if we allow the laws to get more sophisticated, more complicated, and then we take this legal system that we blindly obey, we're blind to the justice system. We're blind to the laws. If we obey the system and then hand that power over to an artificial intelligence system with no conscience, no morals, no compassion, humanity will collapse in on itself. All of these things that are going on now have been going on for a long time, and we've been blind to it because we haven't had the ability to communicate as we do now across vast instances, instantaneously, multiple angles and perspectives, multiple timelines and timeframes coming together with the information that we need now, not what's being orchestrated through the mainstream propaganda control machine. Take that mental health break. Thank you for coming and stopping by today. There's a thumb down here somewhere. Hit that thumb. It really helps. Whether you liked it or not, please hit that thumbs up. People need to understand, and people need to begin to think about the things that we agree to consciously and subconsciously on a daily basis. Like, we agree to the speed limit. We agree to the stop sign. We agree to the yield. We agree to pay our taxes. We agree not to do all these certain things. While at the same exact moment, the people who made the rules that we're agreeing to and obeying and complying, they're doing the exact opposite. And they're getting ready to roll out a whole new layer of freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of spending, control. All of this is coming forth. Yesterday, something leaked about, right before they were getting running another talk, how they were going to talk about freedom of speech and how it needs to be basically changed. They take the voice away of the public, then they have the control. And as long as we adhere to the obedience of ridiculous laws, like legal, for example, one last thing, these last 2 years, it was a government mandate. Right? As soon as the word came out, mandate, the public should have taken out their super intelligence devices, now with 5G, and looked up what is the Black's Law definition of mandate. And when you look up the law, what is the legal definition of mandate? Right? What does it mean? Let's look together. How shall we? Let's look it up. Hopefully, let's see. Legal definition of mandate. Let's see what pops up. Of course, my internet's running super slow. And of course, it's not operating as quickly as I want it to. So, legal definition of mandate. Long story short, a mandate is a rule that the government is suggesting the public follow, and it does not become enforceable until the public generally complies to the mandate. These words set traps for us because we're not questioning the words. We're not questioning the intent of the words and the long-term outcome of these words. And so, thank you for stopping by. Hit that like, share, subscribe. I appreciate it. There's so much more to share. 2 words we need to understand. What does legal really mean today? Right? What does it mean? And why are we obeying laws when the people who create the laws have no compliance or obedience or accountability to them? There's 1,000 instances that we could bring forth just in this moment right now where somebody did something wrong on a higher up level and all they had to do was pay a fine. They didn't get a criminal conviction, they got a civil conviction. And there's differences between these also. And there's people at the very top who are being exposed. I can't believe it. There's a trial going on with Sussman, and it's exposing Hillary Clinton for the criminal that she is, even though it's been right in front of our faces the entire time. But cognitive dissonance makes us not want to accept the fact that the TV tells me she's the little nice old mom, but news is she's a murderer, she's a sadist, she's a filthy human being, and she shouldn't be here on earth anymore. And soon enough, God will take her home or wherever she needs to be. I digress. Stop. Take that mental health break. Consider things to be more than they are, because they are more. And when you begin to learn that they are more, you can then take your power back and begin to mold and create the reality you want. So, God bless you. Thanks for stopping by today, because today's the only day that exists. Have a good one.